House to Home, presented by Remax Diamond Realty.
Hello, 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 and half day, everybody. If it's Tuesday, that means Liz, Gina, and Jason are in the house, and we're all on island for once. This doesn't happen too often, but ladies, it's lovely to have you and be in the same time zone with you, and good to catch up with you again and talk about real estate and the infinitely intriguing opportunities and challenges and just things to have a good discussion about that this industry brings. So I hope both of you are doing well.
Yes,
We are.
absolutely.
Thanks, Jason.
Okay, so I wanted to actually, we believe in fairness here on House to Home, and we like to cover both sides of every argument. And to date, we've been talking about this settlement that's going to happen and some of the mandated changes that you will now have to disclose as realtors and as sellers. But we've never really approached if that does have any procedural changes from the buyer's perspective. So, Gina, are there any things that buyers have to keep in mind?
Well, yes, we kind of discussed what buyers need to do last week in terms of, now they need to sign a contract if they're going to go out with their agent. They must have a buyer's agreement in place if they're going to look at properties, right? So we talked about that last week. They have to negotiate with their agent, their buyer's representative, how their buyer's representative is going to be compensated. To be fair, we wanted to kind of get into explaining about what we need to do when we're working with our sellers, because, Liz and I have listings and we've been trying to explain the protocol with the sellers. What does that mean for you, Mr. Seller, now that the market's shifting and buyers have to have a buyer's representative? What does it mean for you? And what are you going to do? What are the changes that impact you? But for me personally, I just want to say this. In all my listings, I've always explained to the sellers that the commission that you agree to pay is a commission that you're giving up to Remax, to me. I mean, it's to the company, but I'm going to be the realtor that is in charge of doing the work for you. And so the commission you're agreeing to pay is really a commission that you're agreeing to give Remax to compensate me for my services. And what I always explain is that if I'm going to, when a buyer's agent comes along, I am willing to give up some of what you're paying us, Remax. I'm willing to give up some of that portion to cover a buyer's commission, a buyer's agent's commission, if that issue comes up. And that's always been the case for me personally. You're not giving me X amount for Remax and X broker. No, you're really paying Remax, and Remax is going to go out there and do the work. And then Remax may or may not agree to split that commission with the other agent. That's always been my take on it. And I'm going to continue explaining it to the sellers that way. You're really agreeing to paying me. But in this, the one change though now is that, let's say I didn't explain to the seller what we were going to do with the commission, which, of course you can't do that. But now you have to disclose, okay, and Mr. Seller, if you're going to give buyer concessions to cover commissions, what amount do you want to give? And that's, that's part of the new settlement, is that we have to have this conversation with the sellers as well.
And
But
we've
for
talked
me,
about the fact that
everything stays
it's
the
up for
same.
negotiation right now, where you can just make a pitch or yeah.
Yeah, everything is negotiable.
Everything is negotiable. So I've been getting a lot of calls from buyers agents right now that are showing properties that I have listed, and they want to know, is there a buyer concession? And of course, currently the way we have it, we're doing, there's a co-broke that I would do with another agent. And I would say, well, the concession or the professional fee will be reflected in our co-broke agreement. And these things have to be disclosed on the front end. Two agents, a buyer's agent and a selling agent, will have to have the discussion even prior to them showing. But then going back to the on the listing side, when I'm working with my sellers, of course, we're going to have to address their new forms right now that are out because of this situation. And it's all about disclosure. But as Gina puts it, our discussion with the seller would be, Mr. Seller, yes, you're paying me this commission, but what are your thoughts, or what's your feeling? Because it's up to me on how I split that commission. So right now, of course, there is some compensation to the other side, but again, emphasizing that that has to be cleared on the front end, a discussion between both listing and selling agent. But again, this whole thing is about disclosure, disclosure, disclosure. We have to have documentation in place. We have to have the discussion. Mr. Seller, I'm going to sell it. There could be situations where a buyer may not have the financial capabilities of paying additional monies to cover their broker compensation. And again, as a buyer's broker, you're going to have a clear definition of how this is going to be paid. And if the buyer does not have it, and they're unable to negotiate that with a listing agent, there's got to be alternatives. They have to have a backup plan for that. But of course, on the Diamond Realty, our RE/MAX Diamond Realty side, we want to serve, first of all, the seller. Yes, we want to serve them and get their highest and best offer. But at the same time, we want to be able to have the ability to negotiate with the buyer's agent if in the event they do not have, the buyer is unable to come up with compensation, because that would inhibit the ability to move the property. So again, those discussions are what Gina and I will have to have with the seller, that we want to have the flexibility and the ability, but we need the seller's permission, and everything has to be in writing. So
Okay.
for example, if we get, let's say, the seller, because right now, I think there's a lot of the sellers are thinking, oh, I don't have to pay the buyer. So maybe they want to cut the commission to RE/MAX Diamond Realty, for example. But Gina and I will have the discussion, you can cut it. But what does that do to your property? Does it limit the ability to sell it, or does it enhance the ability to sell it? So we're going to have these discussions to say, what if we had this amount? Again, it's up to us individually as listing agents to compensate the other side. We want to help the seller. And sometimes in doing so, we have to collaborate with the buyer's agent to find middle ground so that it serves the buyer and it serves the seller.
Okay, ladies, I'd like to talk about something now on this subject of negotiation, right? So whether, buyer, seller, there's a continuum there, right? But when it comes to time to discussing with your agent, what that commission is going to be, should I look at this in terms of, like, if I'm just starting the discussion or I'm part of that, should I see it as a percentage of the offering price, or should I say like a flat amount, or like, I mean, I know in, like, when it comes to like movie agents, like representing like they're the director or the main star of a movie, it's like 4%, I think, is like the flat fee. Is there some sort of range which is comfortable, acceptable, like excessive, too low, too high? Like, how do I even know?
Everything is negotiable.
Okay.
That's right.
So basically it's up in the air, and you do have the leeway to kind of like talk about that. Okay. That sounds fair.
That's right. So currently, with like our commission right now, if let's say the commission is 5% or 6%, sometimes we would do the 50-50 between the broker and the selling, or whatever expenses are involved. It may be less. Some of the offices are giving less to the selling offices. But again, it could be a flat fee. It could be a negotiated commission, percentage of a commission. It's between both agents. But again, we still have to talk to the seller prior to any of that, that these are the different scenarios that could happen. Are you okay with this? And we have to get their permission in writing, that it gives us, the agent, Gina or myself, the flexibility to do whichever within a certain parameter.
Okay, so the two biggest things that everybody, Gina, that we want everyone to know about is that disclosure is the order of the day now, and that's a good thing because it is, as Liz said, it's going to help the properties move through the market and get the transactions closed in a much more expedient way, and everything is negotiable, as you said.
Disclosure has always been part of our industry. Disclosure. It's always been. But, you know, we're emphasizing that now because of this situation where buyers have to have their own contract with their agent, and they have to address compensation. Now, in terms of what do sellers offer? Sellers could do whatever they want. This is a negotiable market. Sellers can just negotiate with their listing broker and say, and I want to say, I want to make a point of this. RE/MAX Diamond Realty, in our office, we have our standard rates for residential, commercial leases. We do have rates that we charge, just like when you go to a dental practice or when you're working with, a professional, they have their rates that they're going to charge you. So we, of course, have our rates to perform our services.
Yeah, good luck trying to negotiate a root canal. That's not going to work.
You're right. But again, I just want to stress that it is negotiable. And, depending on how much you think your agent is worth, I think that plays a key factor. If you believe your agent's giving you 10% worth of service and they're charging you 6%, you're probably going to say, okay, that sounds great to me. But the sellers, and we're going to be having that conversation with the seller, are you open to giving the buyer concession to cover their realtor's fee? I mean, right now, everything is going to be up for discussion.
Very interesting. Okay, so Liz, as this is being implemented, because we started talking about this before it was August, and now we're practically smack dab in the middle of the month, right? Is this much ado about nothing, and both buyers and sellers, and even, to be fair, realtors, is it like a little bit of growing pains that when you finally do it a few times and everything like that, it's going to be like muscle memory?
Yeah, it goes into effect Saturday, August 17th. So right now, the realtors here on Guam are reviewing the new forms that we were given to ensure that we cover all bases and comply with the requirements to meet, the National Association of Realtors standards. They've put that down that we all have to follow this. So it's like there's no difference in terms of what we were doing before. We're doing the same. It's just documentation, discussion, negotiation, collaboration. So these are things that after a while, then we'll get used to it again. It's just following, as in anything in this world, there are changes, you work with it, you flow with it, and then after a while, you get used to it.
And this isn't Big Brother trying to hold down, the man or something like that. So I've seen a bunch of conspiracy theories like online. That's a little melodramatic and everything like that. This, as you said, this is actually meant to streamline the process and to help business along.
That's right. And you just have to flow with it. Yeah. You just have to flow with it.
Okay, Gina, to be fair though, what are some of the feedback that you're hearing just from the market right now about these new, both either positive or negative?
Yeah, there is a concern amongst realtors that are working with buyers regarding, it's a difficult market for the buyers right now. The interest rates are high. Closing costs here runs anywhere from 3 to 4%, and that's the cost of getting the loan. And then if you're going to add in the buyer's commission as well, for the buyer to pay commission to their realtor, the concern is how are the buyers going to make this work out? Well, if you're motivated enough to buy a home, and if you're working with a good agent who knows how to negotiate, I think it all works out. It's, honestly, Jason, I think you're right. It's, if you're working with a strong agent who can negotiate you through this and show you the process, it's just part of business.
There you go.
Yeah.
And we should know something about us being out here in the Pacific, and especially where we are, trade for generations in our part of the world and our way of life to some degree has involved a little bit of the barter system.
Yeah, Jason, just do you remember, you may not remember this way back when there was 80-20 and we had to put down 20% of a down payment in order to buy a home. And that was a period in the 70s, 80s where and the interest rates were as high as 13, 14, 15, 20%.
Yeah.
And that was a period of life and people adjusted. And I remember my first home, we had to put down 20% down. So
too.
again, the market shifts, life changes, you just have to flow with it. And then it becomes the norm until another set of changes kick in and we have to make another adjustment.
Okay, and I mean, I should be so lucky to sound like my grandparents from either side and everything like that. But hey, boy, if we dealt with it, you can deal with it too.
Yeah.
That's
We just
great.
have to
Learn from the people with way more experience than us, and that's what I'm doing here. And hopefully that's what we're passing along to you, because Liz, Gina, and their team at Remax Diamond Realty are not only educating us on these new changes that are going into effect this weekend, but they're also helping us through them and showing them they're not as scary and not as, crazy as people are making them out to be. So,
They're not.
ladies, thank you so much. Exhale.
Yeah,
Saturday's going to be a good day.
Yep.
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, before I let you guys go, I know I do want to talk about the fact that typically it's an election year, of course. Typically, the Guam Association of Realtors considers all people running for various offices and everything like that. At what point will the association start to issue that roster of its endorsed candidates?
I think what the board is going to do, or the Government Affairs Committee, is putting a list of questions, interviewing candidates, and then assessing based on the responses which candidates to endorse for the coming election. So that's coming soon.
Okay, yeah, and to be fair though, we had our primary election a full month ahead of when we typically do, so we got some more time to to ask and to inquire.
Yes, you got it.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll talk. Well, I was gonna say we'll talk to you then, but I'll talk to you guys next week because we got more to talk about the Guam realty market. So, bye, ladies.
Bye,
Thank you,
Jace.
Jason.
Thank you.
House to Home, presented by Remax Diamond Realty.